All right, and we are live, and I have my friend who you probably recognize from other live streams and from the Social Media Church podcast, Aaron Magnuson, online campus pastor at One and All Church in Southern California. Aaron, welcome to my social channels live.
Thank you. What's up, everybody, on Nils' channels?
Yeah.
How many places are we right now? You're going live to so many places in this season, like all the places.
So we're on Facebook, Instagram, not Instagram. I always say Instagram because I can't go to Instagram because they won't let us stream to Instagram.
Yes.
Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Periscope. So
fantastic.
In all the places.
How is Periscope doing these days, by the way, before we dive into this thing?
I would say that I'm getting, and it's interesting, we'll have however many watch live right now, but I get about 10 times the views after it's live, and Periscope is actually, and it's Twitter live streaming essentially, getting about 200, 300 views per video after the fact. So I would say it's decent. Now, I have the largest following on Twitter because I'd invested so much in that years back, but it does have less attention. And so it's kind of give and take there with that. And so YouTube kind of has the longest long tail effect, and LinkedIn has had pretty good engagement depending on the topic. So I'm leaning in heavily to live streaming right now and to the StreamYard platform, and I'm enjoying it. But Aaron, I want to talk about you and your life of being an online campus pastor, where you were a campus of One and All Church, and now you are the campus of One and All Church. What has your life been in that seat over the last 2 to 3 weeks?
Well, it's been crazy. First and foremost, definitely lots of questions, and I think the biggest benefit for me is a ton of things that I've been working on with other departments at One and All, and now all of those projects got sped up. Things like getting online community groups going and how they function, and helping our youth get online and get some services going that way. And so there's just a lot of focus. We even have our kids team making content every week. And I think the most exciting part about it is not only are these things happening where we're thinking online first, because you have to, it's been a value add to each of those teams. So each of those teams come out of the studio after recording 3 weeks worth of content in 2 hours, knowing that it's going to have a massive impact, knowing that it's going to live on YouTube, like you talked about, YouTube having that long tail, knowing that people are going to encounter the gospel message long after the fact, when what they were used to was putting in all this work for this wonderful experience on the weekend, but then next week we got to do it all again. And so for them to get into the studio, get in front of a camera, record a whole bunch of stuff that they know is going to live on, has been a value add, and that's been really fun to see. So there's kind of a rejuvenated excitement amongst our staff, doing something new, doing different rhythms. And what's helpful to me as well is lots of creative ideas coming from people who have never thought this way before. So after our first weekend of being exclusively online, people coming back with these really incredible ideas that I would have never thought of because they're looking at it through their lens first. So a lot of innovation in the church, a lot more willingness to take risks, and a lot of projects that I was driving that I don't have to drive so hard anymore.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, what the advantage of other people paying attention to is they've got fresh eyes. And so when we're living in it day to day, we can get into a rhythm of keeping up. And then when somebody else is all of a sudden looking at it new, they've got fresh eyes. And so I think that's a really great perspective on what we do online. And I think what's going to happen with a lot of churches is they're developing behaviors now that aren't just to get through this season, but are establishing a rhythm that will continue beyond these quarantine days. Aaron, let's get practical about what you're doing. So online worship services, what are you doing? And what's different than what you were doing before now that things are the quarantine?
Biggest difference. Our lead pastor, Jeff Vines, learned that he can preach to a camera with nobody in the audience.
Okay.
And that for me as the online pastor was the biggest win because, well, he learned two things that first weekend we did that he could do that, preach to an empty room, just to a camera. And then when he was watching himself, he had the realization that, wow, this is really impactful. Like, you could actually just hand somebody a link, a house church in New Zealand. He's big in New Zealand and Australia. You could hand somebody a link, and they
Yep.
could do church in their house. Now, he's thought about house churches before, but I don't think he had ever connected the dots that you could actually run your own service with everything that you need, whether
Yep.
you had somebody in your house that is a gifted teacher.
Yep.
You don't have to worry about that. You can just facilitate a room, push play whenever you're ready to do it,
Yep.
and you have church in a box, essentially. And then the third thing that he realized was, wow, we run 5 services at One and All, and he is preaching at least 3 of those every weekend. And he realized, wow, Saturday night, my weekend's done.
Yep.
I can come in and start working on my next week's message
Yeah.
during Sunday, and I have no responsibilities. And so that speaks to the rhythm that you're talking about, where teams are learning that digital actually helps sustainability,
Yes.
and you still get a great product. And so that was how the message went. Now, we just ran a normal weekend service
Yep.
with nobody in the room. We had except for our production team, captured it,
Yep.
streamed it, and then we just continued to restream that out over the course of the weekend. And
so
that's been our rhythm this far.
The first service was live, and then all the rest were rebroadcasted for that first service.
Simulated live. Yep, that's right. So sustainability that way. Now, we haven't really strayed creatively. That's not true. The next week, so this will be week 3 of filming stuff. And actually this week, we're actually doing some pre-recorded stuff. So we're not even doing stuff that's live streamed, but still on the stage. And our philosophy is that we wanted to create, in all of the chaos and all of the change, a place of familiarity for our church. So continuing to keep the stage, continuing to keep Pastor Jeff in the same spot. But what we did the second week is we brought in a guy named Cody, and he's somebody that we contract out. He has his own film company. He attends One and All. He actually leads worship on our team. And he brought in some extra cameras, set them up creatively so that there was some faster cuts. Because when you're watching something online, you also learn, people can't just watch the one shot for X number of minutes, and even 2 shots isn't really great. So we had a couple moving shots. We even had one that was coming in from behind him. And so it was filmed a little bit more creatively, but it was still a live broadcast and done on stage. And so I'm hoping to push a little bit more, thinking more creatively. I know there's some churches doing different things, but for people to see, we could do this differently. That has been really great.
Interesting. And what are you seeing on the attendance side? Are you seeing a massive spike? Are you seeing any big shifts? And are you seeing more on Facebook, YouTube, church online platform? What are you seeing different from normal weeks?
Yeah, so definitely more in all places.
Okay.
Where we are trying to drive people is to our website first, because we know that they're going to have the best experience watching from our website. Now, it is a little bit interesting because a lot of people understand have smart TVs, and they understand how to cast to their TV. And so we have actually moved away from all of our TV apps, and we're saying, hey, follow us on YouTube, subscribe to us on YouTube, use the YouTube app. If you have a smart TV, go there. And what's great about that is the live comments pop up onto their TV. So there's still some immersion that's happening, even if they're not watching on a computer where they can type out a response. They can be doing that from their phones or whatever. But a lot of people are in a house, they're watching with people. And they want to cast up there. So we just go to 3 places: our website, which is backed by YouTube, but church online platform, which comes from Life Church. We go to YouTube, and then we go to Facebook. All of those numbers across the board have gone up. And then ultimately resulting in our weekend number going up online. But it is difficult to measure that against, and Nils, you talked about analytics, and you've done some great videos already during this time of how should we be measuring these things. We have our own way of calculating what a butts in seats number would be. But it is a little bit different than a normal weekend for me as well, because now we need to be making the assumption that people are hosting watch parties in their house, or at least watching with their family. And so I don't exactly know, after I present my number to our executive team, how they calculate it out. I'm sure they have some sort of a multiplier, but so the numbers are way bigger, obviously. But it's tough to gauge it against our physical attendance numbers.
So Aaron, just so you know, and I'm doing this to interview you, but I want to share some things that we're working on
Yes.
at the company. We are creating a landing page site that any church can come to, and a bunch of resources. And one of those is how to effectively count, creating an apples to apples with their physical church attendance. So we looked at a lot of churches that we have access to, and to their data, and what we came to is typically the number that online churches use. And what I'm encouraging pastors to do is to take your physical church attendance, and take the number of minutes that people are in that service, and multiply it by 90%. So know that people walk in late. So the average person in the seat is there for 90% of the service. So you take that number, whatever 90% of the service, if it's an hour, then you count, like, say, 50 minutes. Does that make sense?
90 might be generous for our church. I'll throw that out there. I'll throw a little shade on our congregation, but I'll take 90.
I think it's fair. Like, give your physical attendance a percentage. And so you can basically say, here's total minutes experienced in our worship service. That's what you want to compare. You want to compare minutes to minutes rather than seats to seats. And so then the number typically in online is 1.8 is the agreed upon number that most people have come to of the multiple. Now, what we found at Dunham, just trying to make a comparison of how many families are watching and talking to some churches and what they're seeing in numbers, is the number we're recommending in this season is 2.75. So if anybody's thinking how they're going to measure, it's a multiple of minutes watched by a multiple of 2.75. Is what we've kind of found, that it's almost one extra person per household
That's big.
is watching. It's a significant increase. Now, it's not an exact science, but I would say it's as close as we could come in this season, trying to give churches and pastors a real understanding of their engagement.
So just thinking about that off the top of my head, the numbers that we have deemed as our kind of butts and seats number, if you did that 2.75 multiplier on it, it would be remarkable growth from our traditional weekend physical campus, which online is included in that attendance. Remarkable growth.
Yes. And that's great, man. That's great. I think we're having just a lot of people, even somebody who lives in this, is having to figure out some new things in this unique stage. And I mean, personally, I don't love what's happening with coronavirus, but I love what it's forcing churches into and what I believe the long-term effects are going to be. So Aaron, let's go beyond the worship experiences. What are you doing for small groups in this season? What were you doing before, and what's maybe changed in that area now?
This has been one of the best areas of growth for our church, I feel. And transparently, our bottom of the funnel metric for our one and all online are the online community groups growing? And so now we have taken every single physical community group and resourced them to make them an online group. And so we're talking hundreds of groups here, hundreds, not thousands, of groups that are now meeting online, and we've resourced them that way. We've encouraged them to go out. And so some of that was my legwork. A lot of it was our community team's legwork of communication and asking me for resources, in my opinion, but they've done a great job of helping make that transition. So right now, all of our community groups that we're meeting are now meeting digitally. So my number had my bottom of funnel grew a lot, but we'll see what happens, how many of them stick. But the other thing that it's done is it's helped us think, okay, how do we get people into these groups? And so it's cleaning up my funnel really nicely again, because it's stuff that I've been working on. But now that the primary focus is there, it's like, wow, we never thought about, if we want people to get into online groups, this is not very clean, and we need to make it easier. And so one of the things that we've added is we go through seasons here. So we have groups that meet for X number of weeks. and we call that a quarter. And then they take a break because we feel that community groups that have a healthy break and then come back, it gives people a chance to offboard who maybe are in a different season or they don't want to be in that group.
Yeah.
But for online, it's a little bit different because our capacity is really almost always open.
Yeah.
And unless we're going through like a book study or something, people could really join at any time. And so we've come up with this new rhythm of not having finite sign up times, but having some groups that are open all the time. And so people can go to a URL and they can actually take actionable steps right away instead of having to wait for the next season of community to open. And so ultimately what we want to see at One and All is people go from a digital experience online to hopefully meeting Jesus if they haven't already, but getting into like a Facebook group or some sort of an online community in a larger sense. And then from there, helping them get even more connected, whether that's serving or joining a community group. But you were asking what other rhythms have happened. What's been great is our campus Facebook pages. So each of our physical campuses has their own Facebook page. Our campus pastors have been regularly going live in there. And I got to celebrate one of our pastors, whose name is Matt Chavez. Yesterday, he hopped on Facebook Live, and he's very animated on camera, so he plays well, but he's uncomfortable. He's not used to this rhythm. And so he was just, he had a time of prayer, and then he's like, hey, and when I personally don't know what to pray, I actually play the piano. I'm not a very good singer, but I just come over to this part of my house. So he's showing the inside of his house. He's showing what his quarantine experience looks like. And he props his camera up, sits down at the keys, and starts playing and worshiping. And so on Facebook Live. And so what's been great is the walls and access to some of our staff that weren't used to this rhythm. Now it's all gone. And people are really being able to intimately connect with them. And even when church starts meeting again physically, I have a feeling they are enjoying this so much and they understand the value in doing it that they're just going to do more of this anyways.
Yes. I love it, man. I one of the things that I heard today, I was just talking to Redeemer Church here in New York earlier today, and they were saying one of the things they did is they bought a ring light, a tripod, and a Rode microphone for all of their campus pastors' iPhones, so that they could do.
Oh, that's awesome.
From their homes. They've got 5. They call it their churches here in the city, so they're independent churches. But they basically hold, give them that resource in this season to easily do Facebook Live, increase the quality without them having to really think about it. I love that. I love the creativity that we're seeing in this season in helping pastors who don't geek out to some of the newest technology. They're not interested in that. They're interested in ministering to people.
Yes.
And so making it as easy as possible for them and creative ideas around that. Aaron, anything else between Sundays that you guys are doing or trying or experimenting in this season?
Yeah. One of the things that we're doing more, so less on a personal individual side, but more on like a team side, we have our worship band has their own Instagram account. So they actually came up with different shows that they're going to do every day. They did one yesterday. They had a tiny mic show. I do not know where they found this. I thought it was fake at first, but they have like a miniature microphone. It's about this big, but it's actually a mic. It's probably like a lapel mic, but they've just built a microphone around it. And so they call it the Tiny Mic Show. And so they just posted in their stories like a TV guide kind of graphic of when these shows are going to be coming out. And so there's some really creative show style things that are coming out on our Instagram accounts that aren't necessarily branded around a person or a person's page, but around our church's page and some of our ministry accounts that are just giving people something to consume. And I think one of the interesting things about this time is we're so used to being so busy that when you finally get, at least this is true for me in my household, when I finally get a chance to sit down and watch a show like Survivor, some days it's 2 or 3 days late. It's not in real time. What we're experiencing now is people are running out of content, which is, I never thought that would ever be true. And what that's done is it's created space for people who wouldn't crack the top 10 of what people are watching now they might give it a shot. And so when you're seeing people do Instagram Live, Nils, you and I have talked about this a lot. Like, how do you even use it? Like, is it even effective? Now there's a space for it because people are bored. So, Alamari, I think that's how you say that. Welcome. People are bored. And so thinking how your church can start creating some extra shows, and it could be as simple as going live or doing like our lead pastor wants to do a devotional every day, and there's some inclusion of worship, and so we've resourced him with the ability to do that. But we put out a schedule so that people know when this is coming, so they can plan their days accordingly, because we have all this freedom now. It's like we're all living in high school again, but we don't have to go to school. It's like the summer of high school, and it's great for the first couple days, and then it starts getting boring because you don't know what to do. Well, let's, as churches, give people something to do.
Yes, I love it, man. My hope is I know that some of these rhythms aren't realistic long term.
Yes,
I hope a lot of these things stick. Of us realizing that, man, daily devotional, that's a great idea. Let's do that every day. And so in these shows, the worship team doing a daily show, why not do that every day? After the fact. So let's try some things in this season and see where it goes. Any advice, Aaron, from what you're seeing and doing that other churches could be learning that you're in the middle of right now?
And Nils, this is what I love about what you do and what you've allowed me to kind of step my foot into. There's been a lot of churches, 10X who's calling Nils. So let's be very clear about that. But there's churches who are now asking me, hey, how do we do this online church thing? We've been streaming our services forever. And so I think one of the biggest practical takeaways now that you're doing church online, no matter what size you are, I've been celebrating my old church in Oregon. They're a church of 250. They meet in a middle school. Every weekend they have they kind of remodeled a garage to be a studio, and they've been broadcasting using StreamYard. Seriously, guys, StreamYard is the real deal. There's a reason that Nils keeps using it. There's a reason that you're watching this right now on StreamYard, and so it's never been easier to broadcast. But we also need to have an action step off the back of the live broadcast, driving people somewhere, and align that to what your church wants, align it to the context of your church. But that's been one of the cool things that people calling me asking, how do we do this? The two things are, how do we set up a team of volunteers to get in the chat section? And then empower those volunteers to be leading people somewhere off the back of the weekend. And for us, that's a Facebook group. We also have a Discord server, but it's driving people somewhere, not just consuming the content, because there's faces behind the numbers now more than ever. And we really want to come alongside them. And that works okay in the comment section on the weekend, but it works even better when they encounter a live video in a Facebook group during the week. So have a next step. That's like the most important thing I think people are learning off the back of this coronavirus is, where does community gather online, and how do we get people there? Well, you get them there off the back of your weekend service, but they don't find it unless you're driving them there.
Yeah, man, I love that. It's a unique day. Aaron, one of the things that I've been overwhelmed by in the last 24 hours is, after meeting and talking with Steve Gershevich yesterday, is the heaviness that's going to come out of this quarantine, of the increased depressions, increased suicides, increased PTSD. The church is needed more than ever. But the other thing he shared, Aaron, is that pastors are 2 times more likely to experience that because of the stress they're under. And so I pray that you take care of yourself in this season, because you can't effectively lead others if you're not taking care of yourself. And
That's right.
Other pastors are being intentional about that, to take care of themselves. I hope church members are taking care of their pastor. But I hope pastors are leaning in this time to not take a break. This isn't time for vacation. Time to minister to your congregation where they're in great need, and minister to your community. And honestly, I think this is a time to grow your church. This is not a time where your church has to dwindle. This is a church time where your church can be growing. So lean in right now. Aaron, thanks for your leadership. Thanks for your friendship. Excited for the journey ahead, and appreciate the partnership.
You got it.